a friendship that'll never ever end.
Run!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 635. Day in that neighborhood, my brothers and sisters. It is that time to get into another one of these true crime, horror, dark, deep, and mysterious, what the is going on type of videos. And today, we are in for a long video, y'all. This one is over an hour freaking long. And that video is coming from none other than Mike from that chapter. That chapter Wednesday is being seen. And the title of the video is Killer Mom Caught Seconds Before Fleeing the Country. Now, all I can say to this title is, I'm glad her ass got caught before she fled the country. You know what I'm saying, man? I don't care if it was seconds before, minutes before, hours before, days before, weeks before, years before. Long story short, short story long, I'm just glad that her ass got caught before she tried to flee to wherever the freak she tried to flee to. But I digress. We gonna go and get the full details and really check this video out, y'all. And since I said it's over an hour long, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need, please. It is always a delight when we get to go back to Mike. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's go.
Hi, how are you? You have an ID?
It's the 13th of November 2023, and this woman is about to board a plane to Vietnam on a one-way ticket. The reason was that the net had been closing for a long time, for something that happened 9 years ago. Her associates had been convicted, her son had been convicted, and now they were coming for her. You know, she thought she might escape on that one-way ticket, but seconds before boarding that plane, they nabbed her for a horrifying crime. Hey you and welcome, my name is Mike, and in this old video, well, it's a story I covered about 4 years ago, if you can believe that. But since I covered it that long ass time ago, folks, there's been by some I mean a lot, of insane updates. But before we get into all of that, please subscribe to see new stories for the dark every single week. Now, let's give it a go.
Let's give it a go. And get whatever you may need. And one thing I just gotta go and point out, y'all, is the fact that I was saying I don't care if it happens seconds or minutes or hours, days, weeks, whatever, years before when she got caught, but the actual crime did happen years of freaking ago. He said it happened 9 years ago, man. And I'm just saying, if you look at that lady, you wouldn't think that lady would harm a fly, but that just shows you cannot judge the book by the freaking cover. Let's give it a go.
So let's begin with the main lad himself, the person all of the story spirals out from, and that was one Daniel Eric Markel. He was born on October 9th, 1972 in Montreal, Canada, but raised in Toronto into a close and observantly religious Jewish family. From an early age with our young Daniel, it became pretty obvious, clear as hell for anybody to see that he was kind of a bit above everybody else. He was one smart cookie. He was not only gifted with the ability to learn super easy, he also had this innate curiosity about the world. So naturally, he excelled in school. He was always going to be top of the class. And standard schooling was never going to be enough for Daniel. He went on to do an undergrad in politics and philosophy in Harvard University, where he graduated magna cum laude, which means he was wicked smart. He then followed that up with a stint in Israel, where he attended the Hebrew University of Jerusalem before traveling to Emmanuel College, Cambridge, that's Cambridge, England, where he received his master's degree in political theory. He still wasn't done, and Daniel's academic studies came full circle as he gained his junior doctorate in Harvard Law in 2001. And with an education like that, you can only become a politician or a lawyer. Two peoples everybody loves, and don't have a reputation for sliminess at all. Daniel's choice became pretty clear when he took the position to be a law clerk for the United States Ninth Court of Appeals. He also took a position as an associate, one of the lads, you know, for law firm Kellogg, Huber, Hanson, Todd, Evans, and Feigl, or KTH, as I call them, and they were based in Washington, D.C. Now, they mainly did criminal defense law and that kind of thing, but when I say criminal defense, I don't mean kind of like shooty bang bang, or, you know, somebody driving around with some devil's lettuce in the back seat. I'm more talking about the law that Daniel became really involved with was soccer moms having a few too many glasses of wine while they sat around the house all day, popping pills and bitching about their husbands and sleeping with their gardeners. But for Daniel, it was, you know, one of them good old foots in the door, and he wasn't like a lackey. He was given real responsibilities, one of which included giving briefings to myriad professors from around the country. Like, he was making connections from the very get-go, folks. From the very get-go, he made some connections he probably would have wished that he hadn't, but the one that he did end up making was with a group of professors from Florida State University College of Law, and the connections he made with them were just so tight that they invited him down to you know, become a member of their faculty. Daniel's professional life wasn't limited to his teachings either. He was also a published author and co-founded a blog site for law professors called Prof's Blog. In 2009, Daniel co-authored a book called Privilege or Punish: Criminal Justice and the Challenge of Family Ties. The book explored how crimes and crime and punishment affects family dynamics, not just, you know, the person who was doing the crime and now doing the time, but also, you know, their families and how it can, like a stone in the water, kind of ripple out from there. And the thing about all of this, and that is what he studied, folks, listen up, is that, well, it would take kind of a tragic irony for people Daniel would come in contact with and the punishments they would end up getting. Alongside the book, which was published in 2009, as well as having several articles printed in the New York Times, Slate, and The Atlantic, Daniel also kept up publishing regular academic papers too, mostly focusing on crime and punishment. After being given the prestigious posting of Delamberti Professor of Law, Daniel was awarded tenure in 2010, which is an extremely hard thing to do, to get tenure, especially at his age and in such short amount of time, but he was shit hot. I mean, like, in a good way.
Greetings, everybody. Thank you very much to Nick and to Eugene and to Todd and all of my co-panelists, as well as to the wonderful folks at the Federalist Society who have been so exceedingly generous to me over this last year. It's an honor to be here and share some thoughts with you about this big project that I've been working on this last year. It's
I mean, so far so good, right, Bean Team? Like, Daniel, first of all, one of the, you know that smart mother that you met in elementary school when you was like in the first or second or third grade, but you just knew that one day they was just gonna go on to just be far greater as far as like academically wise. I know I if academically wise than everybody else in the class. Daniel was that guy, and you knew from elementary to junior high to high school to college they was gonna be cum laude or whatever that is, and then, you know, after they graduate they gonna have a great career. That's what's going on with Daniel. So far so good. I'm sitting right here right now, y'all. I don't know if he gonna be a victim in this story, or he is part of the murder, or is he part of the other side. Long story short story long, I don't know. But so far, so good for Daniel. I'm on his side for now.
So going through all that, his professional life, woo, it was amazing, right? He was like the most successful guy ever, doing great. Everybody liked him. But his private life was not quite as peachy keen as his professional life was. By 2012, Daniel's marriage to his wife of 6 years, that's Wendy Adelson, it was, well, it was definitely on the way out. His law career on the ups, his marriage on the downs, an elevator straight to hell. Wendy Jill Adelson was 7 years younger than Daniel, but well, unfortunately, folks, she would catch up, and they met, while they were both studying at university. The two ambitious go-getters both seemed to want the same things in life, and importantly to their families, and especially to Daniel, Wendy was also Jewish. In fact, that's kind of like key to how Wendy and Daniel met. They met on this dating app called JDate, and they just hit it off. Great. That was a site specifically for single Jewish people to meet and arrange dates. After exchanging a few messages, each of them thought they'd won the lottery, and things went fast from there. Daniel's faith was particularly important to him, and despite telling his mom from an early age that he was not going to become a rabbi, but he was determined to become a gabbai, which is not officially a spiritual leader, but as close as a lay person can be. It's a community leadership position and a great honor, as this person will be asked to perform readings at services. And Daniel, he was a lot, and I mean like a lot, or no, did we? More conservative in his religious views than Wendy was. For example, folks, when they were getting married, Dan and Wendy, everything had to be done according to the religious, the way it should be done, right? Like, for example, Dan flipped a lid when not all the food served at their wedding was kosher. He lost the plot at that, right? Another thing happened was that when Wendy's grandmother died, Daniel refused to go to the funeral. See, in the Jewish faith, there's a certain person, sometimes called a Kohanim, and that basically means you're, simple way of putting it is you're like super holy. You've been blessed by God to be you're basically more holy than everybody else around you. And again, it's like a great honor and such and such, but I mean, if you are Kohanim, you cannot be in the presence of a dead person, a deceased body, like, ever. So when Daniel refused to go to Wendy's, grandmother's funeral, where there would be a dead body, woo! The Adelsons were not too keen on that at all, folks. Didn't like it, wouldn't have it. They just felt very disrespected by the entire thing. And that actually brings me to my next point. Another big contention between Wendy and Daniel that was sort of always there, but over time it just grew, and it grew, was Wendy's family. Wendy's family were close. Like, folks, really close. You know what,
I just gotta point out what Mike was just talking about with part of the Jewish religion with not wanting to be around dead people and stuff. I'm not trying to talk about Jewish people or nothing. I love, if you out there and you're Jewish, my brothers or sisters, I freaking love you, man. But I'm just saying that just showed you how committed Daniel was to it, that he wouldn't even go to somebody's funeral because it goes against his religion. I'm just saying, man, that just sounds a little weird to me. But that's just me. Let's go.
Folks, this whole video, it's about two people who really hated each other, right? And they also sort of, knew everything about the other. And not in a good way. And unfortunately, they would use that information against them. There are people out there who maybe know too much about you and know things you really don't want them to know. For example, just a few months ago, over 2.9 billion records were stolen from National Public Data, which offers personal information to employers, private investigators, staffing agencies, and others doing background checks. And guess what? Members of the hacker group who stole all that information, didn't they just release it for free? Or what about Dell, who suffered a breach that exposed 3.9 million customer records? Or Ticketmaster, they experienced a massive breach compromising over 560 million customer records. That is a lot of public information from companies we all use, every day almost. So if you were not taking precautions with your personal information online before, this is a ring, ring, ring wake-up call. Frankly, you've never been more vulnerable online than you are right now. Anything anybody might want to know about you, maybe they already do. That's why, personally, I've been using...
Okay, I had to make sure, y'all. I didn't know if Mike was, there was a part of the story of this was his commercial. He got me real good with that one. He is so great at going to his commercial from the actual video, so I had to really, pay attention. But let's get past that. And shout out to Aura.com/that chapter. Shout out to it, man. Shout out to Mike and his commercial. But yeah, I feel like this story is, we just getting to the meat and potatoes of this story, y'all. Let's go.
let's get back into it.
Back to it.
Wendy was the youngest of 3 kids born to Donna, a school teacher, and Harvey Adelson, a very successful dentist. She was the baby of the family and the only girl. Her 2 big brothers, Charlie and Robert, were always very protective of her. Charlie had followed in his father's footsteps and became a well-known periodontist in the Miami area. He'd even taken over his father's practice as his dad neared retirement. And from there, it's also very important to note that you wouldn't want to disrespect or upset Mama Donna or Daddy Harvey, and they were extremely controlling over their children. For example, folks, I got the stories for days on this one. Robert Adelson, the oldest of their 3 children, one time he met and fell in love with a woman who was not of the Jewish faith, and Mama Donna and Harvey, they did not like that at all, so much to the point that they forced Robert to break up with this lady, and Robert was absolutely heartbroken, but, we'll find you a nice, Jewish girl. They did. Robert, got engaged to this other woman who Harvey and Donna were now approving of. They eventually married, but Robert never, ever forgot that first woman, to the point where after a couple of years of marriage to this woman his parents approved of, end of story. Wasn't having that anymore. They broke up, they divorced. He then went, married his first love, moved to Chicago, and never saw his parents ever again. That's something, again, kind of to note, is that in this entire story, in this entire conspiracy web of pure shite, right, everybody's sort of in on it except Robert. That's why he wasn't, because he could see what his family was like and he refused to basically have anything to do with them.
W. Robert, man, I don't blame him. Like, my mom and dad ain't finna tell me who to freaking love, because if you try to force me, then you gotta think about it. He a grown-ass adult, too. But if you just think about it, man, if you forcing me to be in love with this person just because they Jewish or whatever, I'm speaking as if I was a Jew. Like, dude, I'm not gonna love them for real. Like, it's not gonna be pure. It's not gonna be 100%. It's gonna be manufactured. It's gonna be fake, because y'all the ones that making me love them. You can't make nobody love nobody. Long story short, story long, being team. And he got the hell away from them crazy mothers. So, like, seriously, he got the hell away. Like, nah, man, I see what type of time y'all on. I'm gonna go back to my first love, the person who I actually love. I'm gonna marry them, and I'm gonna get the hell away from y'all. W. Robert, let's go.
So everything seemed to start going south between Dan Markel and Wendy Adelson after they welcomed their second child, a boy. Just a year after their first child, also a boy, had been born. Kids were always on the agenda for Daniel. See, the family were now living in Tallahassee, Florida State University, and, Wendy, not too keen on that. See, all her family, which, as I said, she was very close with, they lived all the way down in Miami. Still within the same state, but, like, a little bit away. And so Tallahassee, Dan worked there at the university. It's the capital city of Florida. But to Wendy, coming from Miami, it may as well have been like the boonies. She thought this was like redneck central. To her, she did not like Tallahassee at all. She also had a job. She worked for the same university, Florida State University. The reason she worked for the university also is that Florida State University were so adamant to get Dan as a member of their faculty. Sometimes, apparently, other universities do this too. If they're like so after some person, like we would love for you to teach at our university because you're just so great. It would make our university more prestigious. We want you on our faculty. If you come and join, you come and work for us, we'll also offer a job to your wife. So, that will kind of clear up a lot of issues. So, yeah, they gave a job to Wendy. Now, also to know that Wendy was like a very smart cookie. She's a very well-educated person. She was well qualified for the job. They didn't just like give her a job. So yeah, a big old fracture came for Dan and Wendy after Wendy, she published her first book. A book, ladies and gentlemen, a book. She was incredibly proud of the achievement.
Well, human trafficking is a widespread issue going on right here in our backyard. We have with us this morning clinical professor at Florida State University's College of Law, Wendy Adelson, with a book, and hear more to discuss about human trafficking. And again, like we said, it's a widespread issue
but said to be devastated by Daniel's indifference. Dan the man, big whoop. He was like, he didn't even read it. Now, as you can imagine, though, as I've gone through kind of Daniel's entire history, he seems like a very serious, and he was a very serious man. Wasn't mucking about. Fiction, get out of town. You must be joking. He only reads documents and such. Probably, you know, oven cleaning manuals. That's probably what he enjoys to read on his days off. But to be fair, I also gather the book, well, it was pretty shit. And in fairness to Dan, he did promote it a lot. He used his blog, Profsblog. He pushed the book as much as possible, inflicting her book on other people. You know, by the by. By 2012, Wendy's mind was made up. She just couldn't stick it out any longer, and Daniel was not going to budge. The marriage was over. Daniel wasn't so certain, at least at first. He thought they could save the relationship. So, when Wendy did the old Irish goodbye, which is, as we all know, just leaving without telling the other person, Daniel was absolutely devastated. I mean, one day he came home from work at the university. He opened the front door expecting to hear his wife and his kids inside the house. Instead, he was met with silence. He wandered around looking for them, eventually went up to the stairs into their bedroom, and there, on the marital bed, lay divorce papers, already signed by his soon-to-be ex-wife. Daniel did try to reconcile with Wendy, but once he saw that her mind was made up and there was going to be, you know, no changing it, well, Dan kind of like changed into a different man. He kind of became switched from husband Dan to attorney, lawyer Dan, who has a hell of a lot of qualifications. And there's no holds barred going forward. And this is, you know, divorce became super acrimonious between Wendy and Dan. Things got nasty quickly, and soon the two were only talking through their lawyers. Daniel immediately filed for 50-50 custody, which was granted. Then, over the next couple of years, he managed to force Wendy to stay in Tallahassee with the kids, no doubt infuriating her. One of the most notable escalations during this whole divorce proceedings was when Dan filed a petition that would bar his kid's grandmother, Donna Adelson, from any basically unsupervised visits with the boys, because Dan claimed that, you know, his kids would go hang out with their grandmother, Donna, and when, you know, they came back to him, they would say, you should hear what the L one is saying about, I mean, I'm sure they didn't exactly say it, but they would basically say, the kids would say, oh, you know, Grandma Donna is telling us awful things about you. Dan was not too keen to hear about that. You know, Donna was saying, oh, you know, Dan's incredibly abusive, he's this, he's that, and the other. So that was a huge issue. Because, as I said, Donna is kind of like in control of basically everything. But in the meantime, both Wendy and Dan, they were, you know, seeing new people. They had moved on to new relationships, and friends of Daniel would later say they had never seen him happier than this. So far, so soap opera, right? Not anymore, because it was in 2014 that things took a wild left turn. And that's when there was the horrifying event. Shortly before 11 a.m. on Friday, the 18th of July, 2014, Daniel, he was driving home from the gym, and he was on the phone to his friend. And as he was on the phone, he noticed in the rear view mirror, there was a silver Toyota Prius basically riding his ass the entire way home. So much so that he mentioned it to the person he was talking to on the other end of the line. He pulled into his own driveway. The Toyota Prius did as well. He stopped the car, and then he said to his friend that someone unfamiliar to me got out of the car and was walking towards him. Then, there was a brief moment of silence. His friend on the other end of the line just heard 2 pops.
Oh.
And that was it.
Like, why kill Daniel, though? I'm not understanding the reason for it. Now that we got the details on that, I can 100% say that I'm on Daniel's side, because y'all remember earlier, I was like, I'm on his side for now, but I didn't know if he was going to be the killer or the freaking victim. But come to find out, he the damn victim, man, and I'm just sitting back like, why? I don't understand why. Like, y'all separated, y'all got divorced, the kids are 50-50, both of y'all, the mama and the daddy, are in the kids' lives, y'all, you know, sharing parental responsibilities or whatever. But why did Wendy family want Daniel dead? You know, like, it just seems so unnecessary right now, y'all. Even when we get to the end of the video, it's still gonna be unnecessary. But right now, I don't even see no motive for it, for real. But let's see if we can find one.
A few minutes later, Daniel's next-door neighbor spotted Daniel's car in the driveway. Initially, he'd assumed that Daniel was just backing out of his drive. But then, when the car was still there minutes later on, half off the curb, he thought something was off. His neighbor slowly walked up to the car and had a feeling that something was off after hearing some loud noises a few minutes ago. And then eventually he saw that the window wasn't rolled down. The driver's side window wasn't rolled down as he first thought. It had been shattered by bullets. Inside the car was Daniel, his head covered in blood.
What's going on with him?
I don't know. The driver's side window is all bashed in, and he's got blood all over his head. He's inside. I don't know if somebody tried to shoot him or if he shot himself or what. I don't know.
Soon after, police and EMS responded to the scene and found Daniel still sitting in his car's driver's seat. He'd been shot twice in the head. Though he was still clinging to life when he reached the hospital, it was clear right away to doctors that Daniel's situation was grave. There was little anyone could do for him, and they knew he didn't have long. He soon passed away at 41 years of age. Now, the Tallahassee Police Department, when their investigation started winding up and, they were quick to say, no danger to the public. No danger at all. A spokesperson said they were treating this as a murder and that Daniel was the intended target. Homicide detectives, they took on the case of this man who'd been murdered in his own car in his own driveway. And the natural starting point would be his ex-wife, Wendy Adelson.
Yep.
It took a couple of hours to track her down as she was out and about running errands in Tallahassee, but they eventually got a hold of her at a restaurant close to 2 o'clock, roughly 3 hours after Daniel had been shot.
I just listened to my voicemail.
What'd you hear?
Who
was your voicemail?
It's from Lisa Carey, who is my real estate agent, or who I had gone with to find a house. She just said she was driving around town and she heard there was a shooting on Trescott.
Yeah, that's what this is about. I'm sorry you had to hear it that way.
I'm sorry, I didn't know if I should.
It's all right, just leave it there. Is it still on?
It's right there.
And Wendy told the detectives that she actually had driven by her old house that she used to live in, but she had saw that the whole area was cordoned off. But she, of course, didn't know that Daniel had been shot dead. She thought that there had been a power line or something. That's why a tree had fallen, and that's why there was so much. She couldn't believe it, that her husband had been shot. Pretty crazy. What are the odds that of all the days, that's when she would drive by, all the days and all the times, that's when she would decide to be wistful and drive by her old, marital home. It wasn't until...
Yeah, that's a very odd freaking coincidence, lady, Wendy. And it's like she already starting off bad in the interrogation room, y'all. Like, her story already not adding up, and we just getting started with it.
Until she was sitting, waiting in the interview room for the detective to return, that she checked her voicemails and discovered a message from her realtor. Her agent was calling to make sure that everything was okay after hearing about a shooting on Wendy and Daniel's old street and wanted to check that they were fine.
There was a shooting at your home, or your ex-husband's home, at 2116 Trescott. Okay. Your ex-husband, Daniel, all right, has been taken to the hospital. He's not going to survive.
Oh my God.
Okay?
And so, considering her current surroundings, Wendy put 2 and 2 together and started to panic. The detective broke the news about Daniel, and Wendy broke down and cried uncontrollably for 5 minutes. In the end, though, she was able to gather herself enough to finish the interview. That interview lasted 8 hours, and in it, Wendy went through everything from the initial meeting all the way to their acrimonious divorce.
One. Okay.
I don't know who would do this.
Okay. Well, it appears from what we've seen so far that someone intentionally hurt Daniel. Okay, intentionally. Okay, I don't think.
You don't know who it is.
No. And I don't
think... What if
think...
they come after the boys?
I don't think that's going to be... I have no indication at this time that that's a threat, okay? But the boys are going to stay with you. You're not going back over to Trescott, okay?
No, I don't live there anymore.
I know you don't. but the boys are going to stay with you, okay? And they'll be fine.
I don't know if I can take care of them like this.
All right. Where's your closest?
You know what, Jess, I know we done talked about it a lot of time, Bean Team, but it's on my mind and I got to talk to y'all about it. Just the freaking fact, because I'm pretty sure at this point, I'm convinced that she knew that something that she probably was a part of whoever freaking killed Daniel. She knew about the hit at the very least. But it's like, not only are you killing this dude, but this dude was your literal freaking husband part. This dude is the father to your kids. You taking your kid's father away by doing this. And not even forget her. Think about the grandparents, because I think the grandparents got something to do with it too. I think that's where we going with this story. But the grandparents too. You literally ending the life of your grandkid's father. Like, I don't know if they be thinking about that ish when they do this crazy ish. Let's go.
The two most important things from that conversation is that one was that the detective asked Wendy, here, listen, what do you think? Tell me this. What do you think should happen to whoever did this? What should we do with them when we get them? And Wendy said they should face the strongest possible punishment. They should get whatever they got coming to them. In fact, Wendy would say that Daniel, in his whole law thingies, he was a huge fan of what's called retributive justice. That is when if you do a crime, the punishment should fit the crime. The punishment shouldn't fit the person. So, you shouldn't take troubles the person's been in through or their backstory. You shouldn't take any of that into account. If you did this, you get this.
And you're not under arrest or anything like that.
I understand why you think I'm the primary suspect.
No, you're not the primary suspect. I have to work just as hard whether you were or you're not.
Okay, I understand.
To show what your activities were.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And let's put it this way. I think you're a straightforward person. And I think at this point, if you had anything to do with this, you'd have already told me.
Okay.
And you haven't. So my thing is that let's let the...
My ex-husband caused me a lot of grief. I would never do something like that.
I know. And it's
So
going
I understand why I would be the person you would think would do something, but...
Well, we have to work just as hard to eliminate
It's
people.
fine. I want to figure out who this is, because I'm honestly worried.
Well, let me ask you. If you found out that this was someone that you personally know, would that change your mind about what should happen to that person?
About what should happen to that person?
For prosecution purposes.
No.
Is there any way that you would think
somebody tried to kill my ex-husband, they should be prosecuted to the full extent of the law.
Regardless of who it is.
I mean, it would be different if I thought it were my brother, but I don't think it was my family. Anyone outside my immediate family, that's a tough one.
Okay.
But I don't think my immediate family did this, so if it's anybody else, yeah.
It don't matter if it's your family or not. I've said this and I'm going to say it again too, Bean Team. I don't care if it's my freaking mama. I couldn't even say it right. My mama, my mommy, my mom, my mother. I don't care if it was her. If I find out that she killed somebody, she committed murder, no self-defense, no nothing. And this is just a crazy hypothetical because my mama would never do nothing like this. But if she did and I knew she did it, then guess what, mama? You got to go to prison for the rest of your life at the bare minimum. You know what I'm saying? So for her to say, unless it was my brother, first of all, you giving the police a clue that you think your family had something to do with it because you're already trying to protect them before you even admit that you know that it was them or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You already sound like you're trying to protect them. But seriously, y'all, I don't care who the freak committed the freaking murder, man. If you're guilty, you're freaking guilty. As sad as it would be for my sister to freaking murder somebody, if she did it, man, goddamn, man, I just throw my hands up, sister. You gotta go do that time for that crime. Let's go.
Would you think that this guy Charlie would even be capable of doing something like this?
No.
Let's just talk.
He's the Joker.
Okay. All right.
The second remark Wendy made was, oh God, I hope nobody killed my ex-husband. because they thought that's what I wanted when I certainly didn't want it. I hope somebody didn't think they were doing me a favor. Ooh.
Danny didn't.
Okay, time out. Now I'm thinking it's her, the current dude she with. You know what I'm saying, man? We'd have heard plenty of those stories before where they break up with somebody, get in a relationship with somebody else. Then that somebody else, they be telling them about how they ex is this and that, and I hate them and I want them dead and all that. Then the person they currently with go goddamn kill their ex. Sound like one of those stories too. But anywhere it go, she freaking involved and she knows she involved.
Treat me very well, and I'm so scared that maybe someone did this, not because they hate Danny, but because they thought this was good somehow.
Do you think someone would do this for your benefit without asking you?
No.
What good does it serve?
In particular, she seemed extremely concerned about her brother's potential involvement. Not, of course, her oldest brother Robert, who is all the way now in Illinois. No, she was more concerned about her other brother's involvement. Maybe Charlie, the periodontist from Miami, might have done something.
What I love about what I do is being able to restore people's smiles and change the way they chew, change the way they live, and change their self-esteem and how they think about themselves on a daily basis.
She even told the detective that Charlie had made what in hindsight was a very bad taste joke when he was helping with a TV he'd bought for her, that she'd been having issues with. Apparently, while he was moving it, he told her he'd bought the TV because he'd looked into hiring a hitman and found out the TV was cheaper. She laughed it off at the time, knowing it's classic Charlie and his dark and twisted sense of humor. But now that Dan is actually dead, she was like...
My brother, the one, his name's Charlie, the one I'm really close to, he makes a lot of jokes in bad taste. But even my family, who felt like I had been mistreated, would never do something like this. Never.
Now, Charlie Adelson was a very successful guy in his own right. He had taken over his dad's, extremely successful practice. As you can see, he's also probably the most awkward guy ever to do an advert.
My name is Dr. Charlie Adelson, and I am a periodontist, owner, and co-partner with my father, Dr. Harvey Adelson, who's a cosmetic dentist.
Great stuff, Charlie. He would roll around Miami, downtown Miami, in his Ferrari, and he liked him some ladies. It wasn't like, Wendy or Robert who both marry and settle down. Charlie was mad about town. After Wendy's interview, it seemed from police statements that arrests were imminent, and that they already had targets in mind. But then, suddenly, it seemed from the get-go, from Jump Street, that this would be an open and shut case. But was it? No. It actually wasn't an open and shut case at all, because I'm still talking about it, and it's still going on 10 years later. But they did have targets in mind, but this is like the most patient police investigation you will ever hear. There was nothing, almost 2 years passed after Dan Markel's death, that there would be news. And by the way, that interview Wendy gave, only interview she's ever given the police. Every other time she spoke through her attorneys. Just as the news of Dan Markel's murder, began to kind of settle down, news of an arrest hit the news. The name, though, of the arrested person kind of surprised everybody. Not because it was a known name, but because it was an unknown name.
Our top story tonight, an arrest is made in the murder of Florida State law professor Dan Markel.
We have the latest on the investigation and what led police to an arrest. Sigfredo Garcia has been arrested and charged with Dan Markel's murder. On July 18, 2014, authorities found the FSU law professor shot in the head at his home in Tallahassee.
34-year-old Sigfredo Garcia's name was not one anybody expected to see listed alongside Daniel's. But that's exactly what anybody reading the news on May 26th, 2016 would have seen. The two men would never have had, a reason to meet, but suddenly Miami resident Sigfredo Garcia was charged with first-degree murder. So why would Sigfredo Garcia, also known as Tuto, want to murder Dan Markel? Usually journalists would find the answers in the probable cause affidavit released at the same time as the arrest, or at least very soon after. Thing is, though, in this case, the affidavit was sealed. Investigators in the case didn't want it out there yet. No, they didn't want to release it because they had more arrests to make, and they didn't exactly want other names out there in the media. When the documents were finally made public, they did show, oh, the police are planning on arresting more people. But the other person listed, no huge rush, because his name, the other person they were planning on arresting, his name was Luis Rivera, right? Also known as Tato. Tudo and Tato. What's going on here? But they were in no rush, and they didn't really mind his name getting out there because he was already in prison. He was serving a sentence in a federal prison for unrelated charges. See, Rivera was a lifelong dedicated member of the Latin Kings gang and had been swept up in a RICO bust. Like his alleged accomplice, Sigfredo Garcia, Luis Rivera also had no connection to Daniel Markel. Early on, speculation was that this seemed like a professional hit, which it was. But, Dan, why would he be killed by these gang members? Right? He had been a defense attorney, but he had never dealt with, homicide, murders, gang stuff. He'd been like a white-collar defense lawyer. I don't think gang members would be able to afford Dan Markel's work. And he hadn't even practiced as a lawyer in years and years. See, the key to it all was that silver Toyota Prius Dan mentioned on the phone that had been following him for some time, and the police would find CCTV showing it had been following him all day long, folks. Authorities were able to find CCTV images of the Prius in question in the area on the day Daniel was killed. It even had several distinctive features that allowed them to determine it was the car they were looking for. See, those images showed that the car had a SunPass tag in the window. SunPass is used by vehicles passing through tolls that allow the driver to, just have it scanned rather than having to worry about the correct change. In this case, following that SunTag pass, they could trace the car all the way from Tallahassee to where it had come from, which was down in Miami. They found the rental center that had leased the car, and that gave investigators Garcia's name, and in turn, Sigfredo Garcia gave up Luis Rivera. The two men were seen in the Prius, having started following Daniel as he ran his daily errands, dropping the kids off at school, going to the gym, just waiting for the right opportunity to strike. And when Daniel pulled into his own driveway, that was when they basically were right on him, parked the car. It was Sigfredo Garcia who got up, walked towards Daniel's car, stood right beside it, pulled out a gun, and shot Daniel twice in the face. Unveiled court documents showed that this wasn't even the first time they had been tailing him. About a month previous, they had been tailing him all around Tallahassee, yet again, learning his routine, where's the best place to get him, and that trip had been unsuccessful, so that's why a month later, they came back and they did it. It was kind of good timing too, because the next day, after he'd been murdered, Daniel was actually due to fly to New York for a work business trip, so it was almost like they knew that they had to kill him this day. It was almost as if somebody who knew his itinerary told them. Maybe somebody who he was sharing custody with of kids. Maybe, because they would need to know Daniel's itinerary when he was around, when he wasn't around. I don't know. Who knows these things? So why would...
Goddamn Wendy, man. Wendy. You mother. You know what?
These two lads travel all the way from Miami to murder a lawyer they had never met, never had reason to meet, had no beef with at all. The answer to that question then lies with another person in this entire conspiracy, a woman named Catherine Magbanua, also known as Katie. According to the affidavit, it was Katie Magbanua who had initiated the hit in the first place, and it was Katie who had insisted that Garcia and Rivera go back to Tallahassee and complete the hit. Katie's link to Sigfredo Garcia was pretty easy to uncover. She was the mother of his two kids, and the two of them were in a constantly on-again, off-again relationship. But Mike, I hear you wonder, why would then Katie, who was kind of like the person who orchestrated the hit, what would she have against Dan Markel? Okay, she worked as a dental assistant in Miami. She never had any reason to meet Dan, no beef with him at all. He hadn't pissed her off. He hadn't represented her in a case. So why would Katie get these two guys to kill Dan? I hear you barking, big dog. Not only was Katie in a very flexible relationship with Sigfredo Garcia, they had a kid together, she was also in a very close, you know how that's going, close relationship with one Charlie Adelson.
When a patient comes to my office, they're being treated like family. And it's also being a team approach.
Rivera and Garcia's cell phones were just an absolute gold mine for the prosecutors. Tuto and Tato, Dumb and Number. They were The police had them like nailed to the wall, their cell phones, their pings, it was pinging the exact same time, you know, Daniel's phone was pinging, so they were full sure, okay, we got the guys who actually pulled the trigger. And then they were able to link that to Katie, who, through cell phone contacts, text messages, all that sort of thing. I mean, the cell phones were, as I said, a goldmine. That's then what gave them Katie. And then Katie, eventually, turns out she just happens to be in a close relationship with the brother of Dan Markel's ex-wife. Katie was the first call Garcia made after the job was done. And while she was certainly a driving force in the hit and the vital connection between the contractors and their employer, she was not the one who initiated things. As I said, Katie had no reason to ever want Dan Markel dead. She didn't even know him. How would she even know who he is? That was until a certain Charlie Adelson, wealthy periodontist, gave Katie Magbanua about 100,000 reasons to want Dan Markel dead. And of course, Charlie's reasons for wanting Dan Markel dead are a lot more obvious. He was causing trouble within the family, he was causing Wendy nightmares, he was not allowing Donna to see the boys. They were just like, let's just get him out of the picture, you know? He'll always be a thorn in our side, let's be done with it, nip that in the bud. It really seemed that Donna losing unsupervised visits with her own grandchildren was the final straw for the Adelsons.
Like, this is such a deep and complex hit that they put out on Daniel that involves so many moving pieces and different parts. And I feel like they thought they were smart by involving, I guess you can say, Charlie's side chick or his mistress or whatever, his one of his lovers. But it's crazy because she actually still had a lover, which was her baby daddy, who ended up carrying out the hit. But it just goes so deep, y'all, and I feel like they thought they were smart by involving other people outside of the family to actually carry it out. But at the same time, man, I just look at it as so sad that he offered, I'm talking about Charlie, he offered 100,000 reasons or $100,000 like Mike really mean to say. It's just so sad, man, that that's what a human life is worth. $100,000. You hear $100,000, now you ready to freaking kill somebody. Because like Mike said, Katie never even met Daniel a freaking day in her life, but she just heard that and now she up on it. And her baby daddy and his friend up on it too. Just freaking effed up, man. Let's go.
On June 17, 2016, an indictment came down that officially brought charges of first-degree murder against Garcia and Rivera. The amount of evidence against both Tuto and Tato was, quite frankly, ridiculous. Rivera, already serving the sentence on the RICO charges relating to his Latin Kings involvement, got himself a pretty sweet deal. Luis Rivera, confess everything, name names, and you'll get yourselves 19 years for first-degree murder.
Get the coffee yet?
Oh, well, I know people. You got it from the kitchen.
Did you get to eat again last night?
No, sir.
You just came straight back?
Yes. They didn't feed you nothing? Sorry.
You don't have any canteens here.
What time did y'all get back here?
You did better than we did.
That sentence would run concurrent with his existing sentence, the sentence he was already serving. So that would mean for first-degree murder, Luis Rivera would only get an extra 7 years in prison if he confessed. An extra 7 years for first-degree murder. Where do I sign? Give me the pen.
But all right, whatever.
I know, right? That's a hell of a freaking plea deal. Now, I understand why they're trying to do it, because they're trying to get everybody who was involved in this murder, you know what I'm saying? But goddamn, that's a hell of a plea deal. If you murder somebody and they say, we only gonna give you 7 years for it, anybody who murdered somebody should jump at that freaking chance. I'm just saying, man, not condoning what he did, but I ain't heard of a plea deal like that in a long time.
Let's drive. We driving. He showed me a picture of Markel. That's the first time I seen a picture of him, and I heard about his name. But he told me his name. There's a guy we're gonna go see. His name is Markel. I'm like, I don't need the name. Forget about the name, because I'm not gonna remember the fucking name. Just show me the picture. I just seen the picture and I looked at it. So I drove up here.
In his confessional interview, which you will see here, it truly seemed like these two were absolute dumb shits. They were hiring meth heads to rent hotels for them. They were like bumbling hitmen, totally. For example, while they'd been sitting in the car in the run-up to the murder, Sigfredo Garcia had been fiddling with the murder weapon, a handgun, and had somehow managed to fire off the gun inside the car. Soon after, Luis Rivera realized they were suddenly out of gas, which led Rivera to check on the hood And that's when the geniuses realized the misfire had sent a round straight through the car's gas line. They went to a store and bought a length of hose and did a pretty shitty job fixing it, something that forensics would later find when they examined that Toyota Prius in question. According to that same confession, Rivera didn't even have a clue what they were going to do. He was just to be the driver. He didn't even know they were going to Tallahassee. He thought they were going like to rob some other drug dealers, you know, stuff, the kind of hijinks, classic hijinks gang members in South Florida often do. But then Luis Rivera told him, oh yeah, we gotta go kill this guy. He was like, all right, Grant, whatever you need to do, we will do. Sigfredo Garcia did tell Luis the reason they were going to commit this murder for hire was due to a custody issue between their target and his ex-wife.
Followed him to the gym, waited in the parking lot for a while, for like 45 to an hour at the most. Got there. So when he came out of the gym, I followed him home. As I'm following home, he goes around the back. I go around the front. We met him right in the garage. I was like maybe like 3 or 4 feet away from his car. Garcia jumps out, goes around the car where he's driving. I think Markel was on the phone that day. Shot him twice, got in the car, we left. Kid driving. We dumped the gun. We dumped the gun towards a bridge. Can't remember that bridge. I wish I would remember if I can show you. I really couldn't remember it. Drove. After that, I made it home. Never spoke about this again. Never told nobody. The next morning, it's a Saturday morning. I'm in the barbershop. Katie calls my phone.
Katie Magbanua was arrested on October 1st, 2016, being charged with murder soon after. As Luis Rivera pled guilty, there would be no trial for him. Catherine and Sigfredo Garcia's trials were combined and took place in October 2019, during which prosecutors laid out their theory about what had happened in detail for the first time. According to prosecutors, Charlie Adelson and possibly his mother Donna were the masterminds behind the conspiracy. But when this was all coming out, the prosecutors were saying this during the trial. Charlie and Donna hadn't been arrested yet. So they were like, oh, jeez. Yikes. And still at this point, as far as most people were aware, Wendy didn't have a clue about any of this. She hadn't been privy to Charlie and Mama Donna's plans. I gotta stop saying Mama Donna. She wouldn't have approved of it. She was not too keen on it at all. That might change. So Charlie offered Katie $100,000 to get the job done. Katie, in turn, gave her, on again, off again partner Sigfredo 40 grand to be the triggerman. Luis Rivera got 35 grand to be the driver. Katie would keep the rest. And in addition to this, Katie also got a job as a dental assistant in Charlie Adelson's practice. So she would work with, which is just like, it's actually quite a tough job being a dental assistant. But she didn't even really show up. She was just on the books. This was great. Get me a salary. Even though Katie...
I just gotta point out real quick, y'all, what Mike just said a couple of seconds before this. The fact about Wendy. I had forgot all about Wendy and what the freak she gotta do with this. You know what I'm saying? And right now, I don't know if she really knew or not about this whole Charlie and Katie and Fredo and what their name is, Tutu and Tumu. Tutu and Toto, something, man. Like, I don't even know if she was a part of this and her mama. Was she or was she not? Let's find out. I literally forgot about Wendy for a second.
She insisted at trial that she wasn't guilty. Her own lawyers were forced to admit that the evidence prosecutors had presented led them and Katie to believe that the Adelsons were involved in Daniel's murder. So basically, Katie's lawyers were like, oh, we're kind of up shit creek. Yeah, the Adelsons were responsible for the murder. The only link between the Adelsons and the hitmen is me. But I didn't do it, I swear. And in the wake of the arrests, Wendy changed her boys' names, her two sons, from Markel to Adelson. She even changed one of their middle names that had been like a Dan Markel family name to one of her own family names. Wendy would say she changed her kids' names to Adelson for their protection, for their privacy. But it more seemed that she was just trying to erase their own father from her children's lives. You know, that kind of way? I mean, it's like you're changing their name from Markel to Adelson. You guys are more famous now than even the victim is. More of you guys are getting arrested. Garcia tried to pin the whole thing on Luis Rivera, saying that it was actually Rivera and not himself that had been the triggerman. Unfortunately for Garcia, Rivera had beaten him to it. He had already confessed, gotten his sentence, and the jury was not buying it. On October 11th, 2019, 5 years after Daniel Markel was murdered, Garcia was found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. 4 days later, he was sentenced to life in prison, without parole, plus 30 years for the conspiracy charges. The verdict on Katie, though, was a lot more complicated, and eventually her initial trial ended in a mistrial. The second time around, though, turned out to be a charm, when Catherine Magbanua's retrial started on May 16, 2022, and ended on May 27th, when a jury found her guilty of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation to commit murder. Like Garcia, Katie was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for first-degree murder, plus an additional 30 years apiece for the conspiracy and solicitation charges. And just when Katie was settling into her brand new prison cell, getting that little comfy butt imprint, the Leon County State Attorney dragged her out of her prison cell and said, "Hey, listen, we need you to talk a bit more, because guess what? You're going to testify against Charlie Adelson." And boom! This is essentially everything I've run up till now we sort of already knew. In my previous video I made 4 years ago. What happens next is all what's happened since. And shit just got weird.
Let's go.
From inside the Leon County Detention Facility, Charlie Adelson made his first appearance before a Leon County judge Tuesday. Adelson was arrested April 21st in South Florida. Among his charges, first-degree murder in the death of his former brother-in-law, Dan Markel. Prosecutors say Adelson hired his girlfriend at the time, Catherine Magbanua, her ex-boyfriend, Sigfredo Garcia, and his best friend, Luis Rivera, to kill the Florida State law professor. While his team hoped to bond him out, that didn't happen due to his first-degree murder charge, a decision that his attorney, Margot Moss, says they'll fight.
Charlie Adelson felt the cold steel of a Leon County deputy's cuffs earlier in 2022, when authorities finally felt they had enough to move forward with charges. One of the reasons it took so long for them to get around to arresting Charlie and then, his trial beginning was, well, the Adelsons had a lot of resources and a lot of connections, and they were quite rich. So they could, basically they just wanted to make sure, their T's and I's were dotted. Charlie's own trial began in October 2023, when after Katie's trial and all the shit from Katie's trial had come out, and now even Katie was talking to the police. Charlie's trial finally began on October 26th, 2023 in Leon County, Florida. Appropriately, it was a week before his 47th birthday. So much came out in Charlie's trial. A lot of it had come out in previous trials, but some new stuff definitely came out in this one. Like, the authorities had been wiretapping Charlie, Katie, and Donna's phones basically since Dan Markel was murdered. They had been watching them for like 9 years at this point. They had a lot of weird things on file, a lot of secret meetings between Charlie and Katie, a lot of strange phone calls between the three of them. See, the police had arranged for an undercover officer to approach Donna Adelson to try and discern whether or not she had played an active role in the murder or conspiracy. The officer identified himself as Sammy and said he was a friend of Luis Rivera's, and accused the Adelsons of looking after Katie and Sigfredo Garcia, but not looking after Luis Rivera.
Excuse me, Mrs. Adelson? How you doing? Just want to give you this. Listen. You're scared. No, don't be scared. Listen, just want to let you know that we know that your family has been taking care of Katie and her friend Luto for quite some time after your problem up north has been resolved. And I want to let you know that my brother, he's incarcerated. He helped your family with this problem you guys had up north. And we want to make sure that he's going through some rough times. We want to make sure that you take care of what he's going through, the way you're taking care of Katie and Tuto. Well, this will explain it. Thank you.
Basically saying that, hey, you guys, I'm an associate of Luis Rivera's, and you paid Katie, you paid Sigfredo, but you did not pay Luis. What gives? Essentially trying to like shake the tree, see if Donna would react to this. If she reacted, then she knew about the murder plot. She knew what was happening. If she didn't react, then they're trying to shake the tree, see what happened. After approaching Donna, she in turn called her son, as she was of course full aware of the murder plot. She was clearly panicking and wanted him to deal with whoever Sammy was. Charlie then promised he would deal with it and call this Sammy. Remember, Sammy is an undercover police officer, but the police are fully aware of the murder plot. They're just trying to see who's actually involved, who knows what. And funnily enough, when Charlie calls Sammy, the undercover cop, Sammy could not sound more like an undercover cop.
Hello? Hola, diga. Hello, diga. Hi, who is this? Who's this? Someone's been calling my family. I'm trying to figure out who this is. In reference to what, man? Someone by the name of Sammy called? Yeah, that's me, man. Alright, what's going on? Well, what's going on is my brother Tato. Okay, my brother Tato has not been taken care of. His family's not been taken care of. I talked to a dentist. Why are you calling me? Who are you? I gave the number to a lady. I don't know Tato. You don't know Tato? I'm sure you know Katie and Tuto. They've been taken care of since the family problem been taken care of up north. I don't know who you are. You don't? Well, this isn't going away, my friend. Because let me tell you something. I was at Broward with Tato, and he told me the whole story. He told me nobody was taking care of him. Nobody was taking care of his family. The family was taking care of Katie and Tuto, and nothing's been taken care of with Tato. So we know what's going on. And Tato needs to be taken care of. Do the right thing.
Yeah, L police officer for that one, man. Dude, yeah, you sound like an undercover cop. Like, that wasn't natural. You know what I'm saying, man? He could have did a way better job when he was on the phone with freaking Charlie, man. It started as a W when he was on the street. I don't even know if the same dude who was talking on the phone that was the one on the street that approached Donna, the mama or the grandmama, however you want to look at it. But I don't even know if they were the same guy, but they started off with a W plan. I like that approach, but when he got on the phone, he just sounded like a straight goddamn snitch, like a straight cop, man. Like, seriously, y'all, hell no. He's supposed to been played that off way better than he did. It's like you can hear the aggression coming out of him, the cop coming out of him, like, we onto your ass, we know who you is, when his demeanor should have been a lot more laid back and a lot more better. Not even just laid back, a lot more realer, a lot more natural, a lot more like you really are the brother of somebody who in prison that know what's all going on and all that. I don't know, but I know y'all get what I'm saying. Let's go, y'all. Almost done with it.
Despite his protestations to the contrary, prosecutors were able to prove in court that Charlie knew full well who Tuto was. The court in Charlie's case heard how Charlie had started this whole thing after being unhappy with the way his sister was being treated. This led him to reach out to Katie, who he asked to find someone to kill Daniel. With the many payments to Katie, amounting to tens of thousands of dollars, as well as witness testimonies and the surveillance records, the jury had a little choice but to make Charlie the third person to be convicted for Dan Markel's murder.
Count one. We, the jury, find as follows as to count one of the indictment, first-degree murder. The defendant is guilty of first-degree murder. Count two. We, the jury, find as follows as to count two.
On Tuesday, December 12th, 2023, just like Katie before him, Charlie was sentenced to life in prison for first-degree murder, plus an additional 30 years each for the conspiracy and solicitation convictions.
Boy, we getting a lot of life sentences thrown out here on this one, being team. Like, hey, I gotta go on, clap it up, man. All of them, you get a life, you get a life. I'm like Oprah Winfrey around this mother, but I ain't giving money out or whatever the hell she was giving out. I'm giving out freaking life sentences for freaking murder. You get one because you was involved. You get one, and let's see Donna. Let's hope Donna get one too.
Your Honor, received those and had an opportunity to review them?
I did. I was able to review the letters. They were also
a part of the pre-sentence investigation packet, which will be filed in the court file as well. Mr. Adelson, I'm going to give you the opportunity to make a statement if you wish. You do not have to speak. However, this is your opportunity if you choose to do so.
I do.
You may stand.
Stand. I would just like to say that I maintain my innocence.
Well, please rise. I'm now going to pronounce the sentence. With the jury having found you guilty of all 3 counts that you were charged with in your indictment of first-degree murder, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and solicitation to commit first-degree murder, I am going to adjudicate you guilty of all 3 at this time, and you are going to be sentenced as follows. As to count 1, the first-degree murder count pursuant to section 782.04 and 775.082 Florida statutes, you are sentenced to life.
That, I guess could have really been the end of the entire Dan Markel murder case. It could have. But it shouldn't have been, and it wasn't.
Hi, how are you? You have an ID? You're under arrest for your cell phone. No, I don't want to give it to you. Why do I have to?
Because my attorney said not to.
Why do I have to give it to you? This is evidence. Evidence. Malice, do me a favor? She's under arrest. I have to go with. I have to go. I have to look at the. You don't have no choice. Let me help you out. No, I have to stay. Please don't do this.
On November 13th.
Yeah, got your motherfucking ass, Donna. That's your ass, Mrs. Donna lady.
2023, just as Donna Adelson and her husband were about to board a flight from Florida to Vietnam, a country that has no extradition treaty with the United States, they were arrested. She was so close. She was so close. She was so close. She must have been, she must have thought I swear to God, like, as she got through the airport, like, she literally arrested right before boarding the plane. She was like, I'm home free. New life in Vietnam awaits me. You know, she must have thought she was there. She'd gotten away. Ooh, Donna, gotta be quicker than that. Shortly after, a grand jury indictment was sent down and Donna was charged with first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. Again, just like with Charlie Adelson, I mean, this is 9 years after Dan was murdered. Once again, you know, the Adelsons, very rich, powerful, connected family in Miami, so the police just really wanted to dot their I's, cross their T's before they put the bracelets on anybody. They had so many, wiretapped phone calls, undercover police, undercover, hidden cameras. There was just from what stuff that came out during the trial, there was absolutely no way Donna was not involved in Dan Markel's murder. Not at all. And so, in fact, it was Donna, buying a one-way ticket to Vietnam. Once prosecutors got wind of what she was doing, they kind of forced their hand. And now they had no choice. We gotta arrest her now, or else we will never arrest her. And Donna Adelson's trial was supposed to begin in September 2024. It did not. Not only was Donna's trial supposed to begin in September 2024, but it has since been delayed till who knows when. See, the reason was that Donna Adelson had the same attorney and defense team as her son, Charlie, because that worked out so well the first time. But a few days before her trial was due to begin, a form that was believed to have been signed by Charlie was not. Essentially, this form was him giving permission for the attorney to represent someone else in the same case. Everybody assumed it had been signed, but nope. Her attorney then withdrew due to a conflict of interest. So when will Donna Adelson's actual trial begin? Some say early 2025. I say they're being optimistic, because Donna Adelson has to find an entire new defense team. Not only that, Charlie Adelson is now requesting a new trial because he says, well, if it's conflict of interest if it was conflict of interest for my defense team to represent my mom, maybe it was obviously a conflict of interest for them to represent me. I need a fair trial. This will never end. Even though Donna is a, older woman, she's an L one at this stage. Remember, Dan Markel, her victim, was a huge fan, alleged victim, I suppose, at this point, because she hasn't been actually convicted. Dan Markel was a huge fan of retributive justice, which is the punishment should fit the crime, not the person. So, Donnie, you really should have gotten on that plane. And so it goes. But, once again, Big Dog, I hear you're barking. What about Wendy? Wendy,
Yeah.
was she really innocent in this entire thing?
Were you involved in any way in the plot to kill your ex-husband?
Absolutely not.
Did you know what was going to happen, but maybe not know the details?
I knew nothing.
Is that why you went to the crime scene on the day of the homicide?
I did not go to the crime scene on the day of the homicide.
Do you know who all was involved in the murder?
Well, I learned today, but at the time, no.
Throughout the tale, the police continually said they believed her to be just that, innocent, though a lot of the time with a wink.
Are you angry that according to your brother's theory, he and your mom have known who killed your children's father since 2014, and you weren't told who it was?
I'm more angry that somebody killed my children's father.
So you're not mad about that they knew this whole time? That's what they're saying.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
That's the theory of the defense in this case, is that that he's known the whole time. Your brother's known what happened to Dan. Does that make you angry?
I'm angry about so many things, it's hard to...
Is that one of them?
Separate them.
Well, try.
I'm confused.
She was pictured with Katie Magbanua, and in Luis Rivera's interview, he says he saw Wendy around the time of the murder, and she seemed to know who he was and why he was there.
Yeah, y'all, I'm just gonna put it out there, man. I think Wendy did know what the fuck was going on, man. I'm sorry, it's too many clues, it's too much stuff, it was too many conversations. Y'all heard how Mike kept saying it like over and over throughout the video, how much evidence, how much wiretapping, how much surveillance, how much these police officers had been investigating their ass for freaking over 9 years. All the evidence on the cell phones and stuff. The last thing that got me is Wendy with that in that picture with Katie. So she apparently knew who the freak Katie was. You know what I'm saying? She knew who Charlie was effing with. Man, there's just, and then let's go all the way back to her interrogation, y'all. Her one and only interrogation, because after that she lowered up and never spoke to the police by herself again. But even in that interrogation, she was already insinuating that it could be one of her family members. And you mean to tell me for 9 years your mama or brother ain't never tell you or confess to you that they did it? Then she also said in the interrogation that her brother would make jokes about killing Daniel. Come on, man. She knew that. She knew, man. She really knew, y'all. I believe she knew before it even freaking happened. She just that one that got away with it. Long story short, short story long. Let's finish it up, y'all.
Driving this way. Wendy's walking this way with the 2 kids. So I'm driving. Before I get to the bump, I'm looking to my rearview mirror and I ask Garcia, man, what's up with this lady? Why is she looking so much? She's like, oh, that's that lady. That's Wendy. I'm like, oh no, that's her name. I said, well, so I'm like, okay, I seen the 2 kids. I said, what's she doing up here? What is she doing up here? Oh no, she came to make sure that everything's all right because he's leaving out of town tomorrow. So it's got to get done tomorrow morning before he leaves. She knows you're up here. So what's she doing up here? So when he calls Katie. Hey, what's going on? I seen this lady up here. Oh no, she's making sure that everything is fine there before what time he's leaving tomorrow on the flight or where the fuck he was going.
Prosecutors have labeled Wendy Adelson as an unindicted co-conspirator, and it's widely believed by them that she knew all about the murder plot. I mean, I would say she knew something. Maybe she didn't know the intricacies, she didn't know everything about it, but it was either one of those things where she was vaguely aware of it and didn't stop it from happening, or she was, that kind of... I find it very unlikely she was completely unaware of them planning to murder her husband. The fact that she just happened to drive by the house the day of the murder, the fact that Luis pointed her out, said, who's this lady who's staring at us, as if she knows who we are. There's just way too much here.
She threw you under the bus in her interview, didn't she?
Nobody knew a murder was going to take place.
She knew her husband had just been shot, and they were asking her who would want him dead, and she said your name. Are you mad about that?
No, she said a lot of people's names.
Well, she
Not at
said
all.
yours in the first 25 pages of a 5-hour interview. Isn't that true?
I wasn't there for the interview.
But you've reviewed it in preparation for your trial, haven't you?
I actually don't know if I've seen her.
Are you mad that Wendy hasn't been charged and you have?
No, I'm mad that I got charged for a crime that I didn't commit.
During the trial of Charlie, and surely during the upcoming one of Donna, no doubt they will attempt to get one of them to flip, implicate Wendy, and, well, maybe it will eventually be her turn. And so that is the story of the murder of Dan Markel. You know, it's safe to say that learning about him, you know, it's a victim, it's a tragedy. This entire case is a tragedy. But it is safe to say that Dan Markel wasn't exactly everybody's cup of tea. He was very unflinching, very unbending. I mean, even the fact that he was a huge fan of restorative justice is kind of odd when he knew so much about the law and how there's a lot of gray areas in the law. But he was like, nope, this is it. And that's, you know, it's either black or white with Dan Markel, but he certainly did not deserve what happened to him. And the entire Adelson family just seemed like giant pieces of shite. No two ways about it. They all gotta be in it. The strings are going through all of them, and it all leads back to Mama Donna, who was certainly the ringleader, because it was when she couldn't see her grandkids, that's when the trigger got pulled. Poor old Donna. You really gotta be quicker than that.
Man.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this whole video. As always, folks, it means a lot to me that you're here. Let me know your thoughts on this entire story down below in the usual place, and I will see you as always real soon in the next whole video. But you know what? Until then, please take care of each other. Please take care of yourselves. Because I love you. Mike out.
It is always the light beam team when we get to go back to Mike. Great freaking story from him. And I just got to speak on what he said at the very ending of this video that gave me some hope. It gave me hope. Wendy is not out of the hot waters yet. She ain't climbed up out of the trenches just yet. She's still in the mud, my brothers and sisters, because Donna ass gotta go to trial, and then her brother Charlie trying to get another retrial. So you never know when one of them might one day spill the beans on her or implicate her into this murder. Like you never know what type of evidence that will possibly come up from those trials that would say it was her. So there still is hope, because we all know, Bean Team, all of us in right here know that she had something to either do with it, or she knew what the freak was going on, man, before it happened, or even after it happened. Like for 9 years, you still had no idea that all these people, and boy, was a real deep one. This was a deep hit. This was just not, because I was talking about earlier how maybe her new boyfriend just got mad and killed Daniel. No, this was something way deeper than that, with a lot of people involved. There is no way that you telling me you didn't freaking know, man. And like I said, y'all, I'm just glad that Mike even brought that up, because I wasn't even thinking like that, because I was so disappointed that she didn't actually face no consequences yet for it. But it still is possible, Bean Team, that one day she will face some consequences, man. I think Mike said hopefully that Donna will go to trial in the early January 2025 of next year or whatever. If not, then whenever she go to trial, man, I just hope more come out. These one of those ones where I hope that might give us an update at some point in time, y'all. I don't care if it's another 4 years from now. You know what I'm saying, man? I would like a good conclusion to this freaking story, even though it got a lot of great things in it as far as like the sentences that were given out. But I still feel like justice is not served yet, because we got to sentence Donna, and she need life in prison just like the last 4 of them. And Wendy, man, I'm sorry, y'all, we got to get Wendy, man. Wendy got to face some freaking consequences for this, man. I really do think she was freaking involved, y'all. Oh my god, man, great freaking video from Mike. Like I said, once again, Bean Team, I appreciate y'all being here as always. I'm gonna let y'all go now. Y'all know I can go on and on and on about this freaking story, but before y'all leave, just please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and do all that if you ain't did that yet. And remember this: love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.